Let's talk about something that sounds, well, just plain wrong. The idea that some people actually get richer after they stop working. I know it seems to fly in the face of everything we think about retirement, but it really does happen, and probably more often than you'd imagine. So that's the big question, right? How on earth is that even possible? You stop earning a regular paycheck, so your savings should start going down, not up. I was talking to my neighbor Steve at a barbecue the other day. He's 68, been retired for about 5 years now. And when I asked him how retirement was treating him, he said something that really made me pause. My first thought was, wow, he must be an exception, maybe he hit a lucky stock pick or something. But when you start to look into it, you find out his situation isn't that unusual at all. There are a surprising number of people out there who are actually watching their net worth continue to climb long after they've received their last paycheck. Okay, so let's break down exactly how this happens. Here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at this retirement surprise and explain the paradox. Then we'll dive into how you end up keeping more of your money. After that, we'll talk about the incredible power of your nest egg. We'll also explore some smart lifestyle changes, touch on inheritances, and then we'll wrap it all up with a really important reality check. So let's get right into it with our first section, the retirement surprise. Again, the paradox is pretty simple. Your income from work stops, so it feels like your wealth should start shrinking. So what's really going on here? Well, the first big piece of the puzzle has to do with how much of your money you actually get to keep. And that brings us to section 2. See, the moment you retire, two absolutely huge things happen to your finances. First, the way you pay taxes changes completely. And second, a lot of the big ticket expenses you've been paying for decades, well, they can shrink or just vanish. Let's start with the tax side of things. When you're working, it can feel like a huge chunk of your salary disappears before you even see it, right? Between federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, and Medicare, it's not uncommon to lose 30, 40, maybe even 50% of your income. But in retirement, your taxable income can drop like a rock.
Let's walk through a pretty typical scenario to see how this works. Let's say you need $60,000 a year to live comfortably. You might pull $30,000 from your Social Security benefits and the other $30,000 from a traditional IRA. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because of how the rules are set up, a good portion of your Social Security isn't even considered taxable. In this example, let's say only half of it is, so $15,000. You add that to the $30,000 from your IRA, and your total taxable income is just $45,000. But wait, it gets better. Because you're over 65, you get a higher standard deduction. So we subtract another $17,000, and look at that. Your final taxable income is only $28,000. Just think about that for a second. You're living on $60,000, but you're only paying income tax on less than half of that amount. That is a massive change from your working years.
Now, on top of those incredible tax savings, your everyday expenses just plummet. I mean, think about it. The daily commute, gone. All that money on gas, tolls, and car repairs just stays in your pocket. You're not buying expensive suits or work clothes anymore. For many retirees, the single biggest monthly bill they've ever had, their mortgage, is finally paid off. Plus, the kids are usually grown up and supporting themselves. And since you have more time, you're probably cooking more and spending less on pricey takeout or lunches out. All these things add up to thousands and thousands of dollars in savings every year. So you're spending less, and you're keeping way more of your money from the tax man. That's a really powerful 1-2 punch. But it's only half the story. And this brings us to section 3, the power of your nest egg. Because the other half of the equation is all about how the money you've already saved becomes a new kind of engine, working around the clock to grow your wealth. You see, by the time you retire, you've hopefully had this magical force called compound interest working for you for decades. And all it is, really, is the money your money earns. In the beginning, when you first start saving, the growth can feel really slow. But the secret sauce is that it's exponential. That means the growth actually speeds up over time. It's in those last 10 or 15 years before retirement that things can get really wild. In fact, the growth from your investments alone is often way bigger than the new money you're able to save from your paychecks. And this chart really shows you what I mean. It's pretty common to see a situation where someone might have put in, say, $300,000 of their own money over their entire career, but by the time they retire, their account is worth over $1 million. The difference, that $700,000 or more, is all growth. And here is the most important part of all. That growth engine doesn't just turn off the day you retire. I love this analogy because it makes it so clear. Think of your retirement savings, your portfolio, as a goose that lays golden eggs. The money you originally invested is the goose itself. The earnings, like interest and dividends, are the golden eggs. As long as you only take out a few eggs each year to live on, the goose stays healthy and it just keeps laying more golden eggs. So even while you're taking money out, the total value of your portfolio can actually keep going up. And this is where Social Security becomes so incredibly valuable. It's a guaranteed stream of income that shows up every month for the rest of your life. For many couples, that can be a few $1,000s a month. That dependable income covers a huge chunk of your basic living expenses, things like food, utilities, and property taxes. And because those basics are covered, you don't have to pull as much money from your investments. It acts like a protective buffer, allowing more of your nest egg, your goose, to stay invested and keep on compounding. Okay, so let's move on. We've covered the things that tend to happen more or less automatically when you retire. Lower taxes, your nest egg growing. But on top of all that, there are some really smart, conscious decisions people make in retirement that can unlock brand new sources of wealth.
Healthcare is a big one. It can be insanely expensive in America, especially if you retire early, before you turn 65. You might have to buy your own private insurance, and for a couple, that could easily be $2,000 a month. But then, at age 65, this massive financial shift happens. You become eligible for Medicare. And for most people, that means their healthcare costs drop off a cliff.
Just look at this number, $1,600. Using that same example, a couple could go from paying $2,000 a month for private insurance down to about $400 a month from Medicare and a good supplemental plan. That's a savings of $1,600 every single month. That's almost $20,000 a year that can now stay in your investment accounts growing instead of going to an insurance company.
Downsizing your home is another huge wealth booster. The kids are gone, you don't need 4 bedrooms anymore. So you sell that big family home. And thanks to a fantastic tax roll, if it was your main home, a huge chunk of the profit is completely tax-free, up to $500,000 for a married couple. So you sell the big house, buy a smaller, less expensive condo or townhouse, and you can potentially pocket hundreds of thousands of dollars tax-free to add directly to your nest egg. On top of that, your ongoing costs for property taxes, utilities, and upkeep all go down. It's a win-win-win.
And retirement doesn't mean you have to stop working entirely. A lot of retirees find they actually want to work a little, but this time it's on their own terms. Maybe they do some consulting in their old field or turn a lifelong hobby into a little business. And because their main living expenses are already covered by Social Security and their savings, this extra income is just pure gravy. It can go straight into investments or pay for fun things like travel, further boosting their financial picture. This brings us to the fifth and final mechanism for growing wealth in retirement. Beyond all the planning and smart decisions, sometimes retirees get a financial boost from unexpected places. It's just a fact of life that people tend to inherit money from their parents when they themselves are older, often in their 60s or 70s. But it's not just inheritance. Retirees might also cash in on old stock options from a former employer, finally sell a rental property they've owned for ages, or receive some other kind of financial settlement. This is basically found money that they weren't necessarily counting on, and it can add a significant amount directly to their net worth. Okay. Now, after hearing all these positive things, we need to take a step back and have an important reality check. Growing your wealth in retirement sounds fantastic, but it is not automatic. It doesn't just happen for everybody. It's not magic. It's actually the end result of very specific financial habits and conditions being met long before you ever punch the clock for the last time. This wonderful outcome is really built on a foundation of decades of good decisions. This only works if you saved enough during your career. It only works if you enter retirement without a lot of high-interest debt, like big credit card balances or car loans. It assumes you're living within your means and that you're smart about how much money you take out of your investments each year. So here's the bottom line. Retirement doesn't have to be the scary financial cliff where you just watch your life savings dwindle. For the people who did the hard work, who saved consistently, who invested wisely and avoided big mistakes, it can truly be a time of continued prosperity, a time when their wealth actually continues to grow even without a job. It is the ultimate payoff for a lifetime of planning ahead. And that should be really encouraging news for all of us. It just shows that those small, consistent steps you take today, putting a little more into your 401k, paying down debt, just being mindful of your spending, can set you up for a future that isn't just secure, but can be genuinely prosperous. If you found this explanation helpful, please take a moment to like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retirement Finance Explained. We provide simple and clear guidance on retirement, savings, and your financial security.